Welcome back to my CompTIA Security Plus course video series. In this second video, we will cover the Domain 2 of Security Plus exam course. I will guide you through the key objectives outlined by CompTIA, ensuring that you understand what's required to pass the exam confidently. Be sure to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos covering all the 5 domains of the exam. Now let's dive into the Domain 2 and get you one step closer to becoming Security Plus certified. Welcome back to the CompTIA Security Plus exam course. In today's video, we will go through the Domain 2, that is threats, vulnerabilities and their mitigation. And the objective 2.1 is compare and contrast common threat actors and motivations. So the first topic is threat actor. So what are the threat actors? Threat actors are individuals, groups, or entities that intentionally exploit vulnerabilities to harm systems, steal data, or disrupt services. So commonly these threat actors are referred to as hackers, but this term is more complex, and commonly the threat actors are divided into these examples, including the nation state, unskilled attacker, hacktivist, insider threat, organized crime, and shadow IT. So we will go through all of these one by one, and we'll study what are these threat actors, what are their examples, what are their motivation, etc. So the first one is nation state. So nation state threat actor is basically a government sponsored attackers targeting specific organizations, nations or individuals. And what is the nation state actor's motivation? So the main motivation is espionage, disrupting critical infrastructure, intellectual property theft, or strategic advantage over their adversary nation or adversary country. And the skill level, since these are nation state actors, so their skill level is very high. They are highly skilled and they employ advanced persistent threats, that is APTs. And again, since they are nation states, so they have abundance of resources, they have significant funding, and they have access to zero-day vulnerabilities and state-of-the-art tools. So some of the examples of the nation-state threat actors that have occurred in the past include the Stuxnet attack. So this attack was basically by the combined operation of the USA and Israel, and this was basically launched against the Iranian nuclear facility. So the target was Iran nuclear facility, and this attack caused significant disruption to the nuclear operation of the Iranian centrifuge and delayed their nuclear program. The second one is SolarWind. So this was a Russian operation, and this targeted SolarWind is basically an IT company that manages and operates network and system monitoring system. So they basically target their product Orion, which is used by organization to monitor and manage their IT infrastructure. And since this was used by many organizations, including many US government agencies, so all of the organizations that has used this specific software were compromised. And this operation was basically done by Russia. So the threat or threat actors or attacks that are launched by nation state are known as nation state threat actor. Second one is unskilled attacker, that is script kiddie. So the kiddie here comes from the kid. As the name indicates, these attackers are unskilled, they are new. So individuals with limited technical knowledge relying on pre-written scripts or tools. So there are many pre-written scripts and many freeware tools available that one can use to hack into systems or to play with them. So anyone who uses these tools but does not know how does they work or cannot launch sophisticated attack, they are known as script kiddie. And their motivation is basically curiosity. They want to know that how does these tool work, what is hacking. So again, hacking is a very curious phenomena for anyone coming into IT. So the basic motivation for the unskilled attacker of script kiddie is of course curiosity, personal amusement, or gaining notoriety. And their skill level is of course low. They lack deep understanding of security system as well as the tool they are using. And again, they have little resources and they rely on publicly available hacking tools and resources. An example includes here we have this example LOIC, that is low orbit ion cannon. So this is a basic tool. It is a very small application that can be used to launch DDoS attacks against websites or systems. The third one is hacktivist. So this is the combination of hacking or hacker plus activist. So these are the attackers driven by ideological or political goals to promote their agenda. Motivation is of course advocacy for social, political or environmental causes, and their skill level varies. It can range from low, such as defacing websites, or to high skills such as data exfiltration or data breaches. And resources, these hacktivists are basically community driven and they rely on crowd source tools and techniques. So the hacktivists, you can say that there is a community of these hackers that share resources with each other. And one of the example of hacktivist group is Anonymous. Anonymous is a very famous hacktivist group which targets government or corporate websites. Another threat actor is insider threats. So as the name indicates, it is someone that is inside the organization, and this type of threat is very dangerous because it is very difficult to detect an insider threat. So definition, these are employees, contractors, or business partners who exploit legitimate access to cause harm. And their motivation may be financial gain. These may be some disgruntled employees that wants revenge or coercion. And their skill level may be moderate to high, depends on role and knowledge of internal system. So the insider threat, they does not need very high skill level because they already have access to the systems and sensitive data. That's why they are very dangerous to the organizations and resources, since they have access to the organizational system, sensitive data, and credentials. So they don't need any sophisticated hacking tools or other things because they already have access to the data and organizational resources, legitimate access which they exploit. One of the example is the Edward Snowden's disclosure of classified NSA data. So Edward Snowden, as you all know, was a contractor with the Americans agency NSA, where he took a lot of data from this agency and then published all the data of this NSA agency. And you all must know that Edward Snowden is still wanted in USA, and I think he is now based in Russia. I think he is in Russia. So the next threat actor is the organized crime. So organized crime are criminal groups engaging in cybercrime for financial profit. So their main motivation is basically monetary or financial gain through fraud, ransomware, or selling stolen data. And this data, stolen data, for example, credit card data, is usually sold on dark web. We will study dark web somewhere in this course. So the skill level, they have high skill level, often employs experts in hacking, phishing, and malware development, and resources. They are well funded operations with access to sophisticated tools. since their motivation is financial gain, so again they invest and in sophisticated tool and of course get the return. And example include ransomware gang like Revel or Conti. So the ransomware, as you all know, these are the type of attack where the attackers lock your computer sensitive data or your system and then demand ransom or money in exchange for unlocking or in exchange for the decryption key. So again, as we already studied, their main motivation is financial gain. What is shadow IT? Shadow IT is basically the technology, devices, software, or services used within organization without formal IT department approval. They are, as the name indicates, in the shadow, as this picture indicates. This may be the IT or services used by the organization officially, which is on the radar, but there may be some application or systems that are not approved and are not visible to the management, and these application or system are known as shadow IT. So what are their threat? So the motivation for employees of using the shadow IT is to seek faster, more convenient tools to meet their needs. And risk with the shadow IT is that they can lead to data breaches, compliance violations, and lack of oversight on security measures. Examples include using personal cloud storage such as Google Drive for work files without approval. So if you store your work files in Google Drive, maybe there is confidential or sensitive data inside these files, and using them or storing them in Google Drive, which is not a safe place to store these data, is very dangerous to the organization if these files are exposed. Mitigation. So, how can you mitigate the threat of shadow IT? You can implement policies of not using any shadow IT applications or devices. Increase awareness among the employees so that they don't use shadow IT applications such as storing sensitive organization data inside Google Drive, and provide secure and approved alternatives. So if your employees need some shared drive to store files, instead of using unofficially the Google Drive, you can give them official secure alternative. So what are the motivations behind these threat vectors? Some of we already studied. Now we will go in detail. So the first one is data exfiltration. So stealing sensitive or proprietary information such as trade secrets or personal data. This is the main motivation, and this is usually applied by the nation state actors to get industrial or technology advantage. Used to sell on the dark web, gain a competitive advantage, or damage the target organization. So this one that used to sell on the dark, these are basically sensitive data of customers or of a company, or let's suppose the credit card numbers, credit card information that are stolen by a criminal organization and then sold on the dark web. The second motivation is the espionage. So gaining unauthorized access to gather intelligence, often for strategic or geopolitical purpose, typically associated with non-nation states targeting governments, corporations, or individuals. So espionage is usually done by the nation states. So in information security, the motivation of the threat actors to espionage is for strategic or political purposes. The third one is service disruption. So the service disruption aims to interrupt normal operations such as disabling websites or critical infrastructure. Methods include DDoS attacks or ransomware locking systems. Service disruption may also include, as we saw, the critical infrastructure. In the current Russian-Ukraine war, there were multiple cyber attacks against the power grids of Ukraine by the Russians. So this type service disruption does not only mean attacking the IT infrastructure such as websites or application. It also means the critical infrastructure such as power or maybe nuclear, as we studied in the case of Stuxnet. The next motivation is blackmail. So threatening to release sensitive data or disrupt services unless a ransom or demand is met, often executed through ransomware or leak of compromising information. So one, we already studied that the ransomware is usually the user is blackmailed for ransom, a financial gain, and this leaks of compromised information is, let's suppose if you some criminal get hold of intimate pictures or other private information of individual, they then blackmail and threaten them with releasing the data and demand ransom or other. They may have other demands. So the next one is financial gain. So primary motivation for cyber criminals targeting individual organization for monetary benefit, and method include phishing, ransomware, and fraud. We already studied that the ransomware is mainly used for the financial gain. And again, the motivation may be philosophical or political beliefs, so motivated by ideology to make a statement or promote a cause, common with hacktivists targeting government or corporations. The motivation may be ethical. So ethical motivation is basically motivated by a desire to improve systems by identifying vulnerabilities such as ethical hacking. So there are ethical hackers who find vulnerabilities in the system and then they do not disclose them publicly, but they reach the organization that are responsible for the system so that the organization may patch these vulnerabilities. Often involves reporting issue responsibly without malicious intent. So revenge, again, personal grievances leading to malicious action against an individual or organization. Common in insider threats or former employees seeking retribution. Again, disruption or chaos. So creating disorder for amusement, notoriety, or to undermine trust in system, often linked to unskilled attacker or cyber vandals. And the last one is war, using cyber attack as part of the nation's warfare strategy, as I already quoted the example of the Russia and Ukraine war, where Russia launched large-scale attack against their power systems. Targets include critical infrastructure, common communication networks, and defense systems. So in critical infrastructure, we may include the nuclear infrastructure, the power infrastructure, etc. So this is the summary of the threat actors. So we have these threat actors, then their skill level and their motivation. So we already studied this. You can pause the video and study it again if you like. So what are some of the attributes of the threat actors? So these attributes include that threats may be from internal or external actors. So what are the internal threats? So these are direct access to sensitive data and data breaches, data increases potential damage. So if what does this mean? That if the actors have a direct access to your system and data, the potential damage is increased exponentially, because he or she does not have to use sophisticated tool or hack into the system. The access is already there and it is very easy to steal or breach the system. Difficult to detect due to legitimate access rights. So it is very difficult to detect the insider threat because the access is legitimate. Example include data leaks, sabotage, or misuse of resources. So what are some external threats? So can exploit vulnerabilities in network defense or social engineering. So the external threat, unlike the insider threat, have to exploit vulnerabilities. It is persistent and adaptable, often bypassing traditional security measures. Example include phishing attacks, ransomware, and DDoS attacks. Another attribute is threat based on resource and funding. So some are low resource threat actors. If the threat actors have low resources, they can still cause significant harm by leveraging widely available tools or vulnerabilities. Example, malware kits, brute force attacks, or script based exploitation. While well-funded threats utilize advanced tools, zero-day vulnerabilities, and large-scale operations. So the zero-day vulnerabilities are those vulnerabilities which are not known to the organization that is responsible for the system, and there is, since they are not known, there is no patch or no remediation or mitigation available, and they are not publicly well known. They are only known to the well funded threat actors. Example, sophisticated espionage campaigns and ransomware as a service. So another attribute is threat based on level of sophistication or capability. So some are low sophistication, which may rely on poorly configured systems or known vulnerabilities, less targeted but can exploit weak security practices. And the actors may have high sophistication. So these are targeted attacks using advanced techniques such as advanced position threats or spear phishing, and they are capable of long-term infiltration and significant data compromise. Objective 2.2, explain common threat vectors and attack surfaces. So let's first explain the attack surface and threat vectors and the difference between these two. So the attack surface is basically the total number of points or paths through which an attacker could try to access or exploit a system. So as the definition explains, it is the total number of ways or entry points through which a system can be exploited. An example include external attack surface is any attack surface that is publicly visible. For example, public facing servers, websites, and API. An example of this is any website when you type www. Let's suppose google.com. So since this web server or website is publicly available, it is public facing, so this is an external attack surface. There may be internal databases or other servers that are not visible behind this network. They may be the internal attack surface. So vulnerabilities in internal software, misconfigured databases. Databases are usually not accessible externally. They are behind the firewalls and inside internal network or employee devices. Similarly, another example may be the physical attack surface, for example, office doors, USB ports on your laptop or PC, or devices that are left unsecured. The second thing that we need to explain is what is the threat vector. So threat vector is basically the methods or pathways used by attackers to breach or compromise a system. An example includes email phishing. So the email phishing is basically used to compromise the users for their credentials through certain websites. Email are basically used for sending malicious links or attachments. So basically email is, you can say that email or email phishing is basically the threat vector because it is the method or path through which users are compromised. Similarly, malware delivery. So basically the threat is malware, but the threat vector is, it may be the USB or other infected software. Similarly, there are network-based attacks that can act as threat vector, exploiting unpaged system via open ports or weak firewall. So, for example, you have a firewall, but the firewall policies are weak, or it is not properly configured. So, this is again a threat vector to which an attacker can enter your internal or private network. Similarly, there are insider threat, employees with malicious intent or careless action. So these are your internal employees which have legitimate access to your system and data. but they can also be threat vectors. They may be threat vectors for other organizations or for nation state actors. So let me further explain these two with the help of an analogy, and think of your system or your database or your network as a house. So for example, your assets or your network that you want to protect, it is just like your own house. So the attack surface is like all the potential entry points into the house. Entry points may include the front door, the back door, windows, chimney, or even there may be some cracks in the walls. The more entry points, the larger the attack surface. So whenever you want to secure your system or network, what you have to do, the first and the most important thing is that you need to reduce the attack surface. For example, if it was your house, you want to remove the unnecessary doors, you want to close the chimney, you want to reinforce the windows and do not let it open when the house is unattended. And the threat vectors are the ways a burglar might exploit those entry points to enter your house. For example, picking the lock of the door, breaking a window, climbing through the chimney, or sneaking through in an open window. So again, the relationship is that the attack surface represents the possible places an attack could occur, while the threat vector represents the techniques used to exploit those places. A house with more entry points, that means larger attack surface, offers a burglar more opportunities to choose a specific threat vector. So the lesser or the lower the attack surface, the more secure the system is. And if the attack surface is large, meaning there are more entry points, less secure is your system or network. So now let's explain a few of the technologies or few of the communication systems and differentiate that what are their threat vectors and what is the attack surface of these systems. First one is the email. So what is the attack surface of an email? These may include the email servers, for example, the SMTP, IMAP, and POP3. So all these have different ports number on which these email servers work. So these port number, these are basically the protocol on which these email servers work. So this is an attack surface. Instead of exploiting the individual clients, the attacker may directly compromise the email servers. User email clients, again, along with the servers, each user has a client. The user may be using the client on a desktop or a mobile client, or it may be just web-based. So when you receive email and when you do email communication, each email communication have links. There may be web links inside your email, and email has the attachments as well. So these are also the attack surface which could be exploited. So when you log into your email system, you use username and password, and you may be using multi-factor authentication such as your Google Authenticator app, or there may be other authentication factors such as biometrics. So these are also attack surfaces which could be exploited. So what are threat vectors? So the first one is, in the first most important one, is the phishing. So this is sending deceptive emails to trick users into revealing sensitive information. And another one is spoofing. So pretending to be a trusted sender to deceive recipients. For example, sending a company employees an email and pretend to be the let's suppose the CEO, spoofing to be the CEO and deceiving the employees of the company. Again, the credential theft, harvesting login credential via fake login pages or keyloggers. So these are the threat vectors. Second thing is the SMS. So this is also the messaging, but it is through the mobile. And the attack surface for SMS include, of course, the mobile devices or the smartphones that receive and send the SMS, the cellular network of your service provider, including the 4G, 5G, SMS gateways and API used by the applications, the SIM card that is used to send or receive SMS. It could also be exploited, and it is also an attack surface. So what are the threat vectors? Smishing. So smishing basically stands for SMS phishing. So this is phishing but using the SMS. Again, just like an email, sending fraudulent messages to trick users into clicking malicious links or sharing personal information. SIM sweeping. So since SIM we said that it is an attack surface, so how could this be a threat vector? It can be by hijacking the victim's phone number by transferring it to another SIM card. You have a SIM card, the attacker may have an empty SIM card, and he or she may swap your number from your SIM to their SIM. This is known as SIM swapping. Malware delivery, so using links or files sent via SMS to infect devices. And spoofing, so as we can see that the attack surface and the threat vectors of SMS and emails are very identical. So spoofing, again, sending messages that appear to come from trusted contacts or organizations. The next one is instant messaging. Again, this is related to messaging, but this time it is instant messaging, and the attack surface include messaging apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, or Slack, and the servers hosting these messaging platforms. For example, the WhatsApp server, the Telegram server, or Slack server. These are also attack surface and can be compromised. User devices like smartphones and desktops on which these apps are used. And again, these apps have also the uh, uh, facility of links, attachments, and media can also be shared through these apps. So these are also potential attack surfaces. So what are the threat vectors? These include social engineering. The message is crafted to deceive user into sharing sensitive information. Users can be deceived through social engineering techniques. Malware, again, sending infected files or links that lead to malware installation on the devices such as smartphone and desktop. And account takeover, exploiting weak credentials or session hijacking. And the next one is image-based communication or systems. So far we are talking about mostly the text-based communication, such as the SMS, email, and other WhatsApp are primarily used for text communication. So what are the threat vector and attack surface in image-based communication? The attack surface may include the image sharing platforms such as Instagram and Snapchat, which have the primary purpose of sharing images, pictures, and videos. Image rendering library on the devices. Metadata within images. So each image has metadata such as GPS coordinates, device details, time, etc., at which the image were taken. So what are the threat vectors? Steganography. So we studied in domain 1 that steganography is the art of hiding data inside unsuspicious sources such as images or videos. So embedding malicious code or data within image files. This is known as steganography. It is very important. Malware injection, so exploiting vulnerabilities in image parsing libraries. And metadata exposure, extracting sensitive information hidden in image metadata. So the next one is the file-based communication or systems. And the attack surface include file storage systems such as cloud storage or local servers. File transfer protocol, FTP, SFTP. So the SFTP sends file without encryption. S here stands for secure. SFTP use encryption. So these file protocols may also be file transfer protocol are also attack surfaces and may be exploited. User devices accessing files, for example, computer and mobile devices that use these transfer protocols for sending or receiving files. Threat vectors include malware, again infecting files with viruses or ransomware. File injection, so inserting malicious code into trusted file types, for example, PDF, Word documents. So these Word documents and PDF files may become a delivery for malware and other malicious codes. and exploitation of file sharing vulnerabilities using flaws in the file transfer protocol such as FTP, SFTP, or software to gain unauthorized access. The next one is the voice call. So the attacks for surface of the voice call includes the VoIP system, that is voice over IP system, and the popular systems that work on VoIP system that work using the technology voice over IP are Skype, Zoom, and Teams. So remember when the Zoom first came during the COVID, there were many instances since it was new that Visa and this application was exploited, and the conferences and the meeting during the Zoom sessions were hijacked. So the another attack surface for voice call is mobile and landline networks that are used for the voice communication. Voice communication devices, smartphones, IP phones. And what are the threat vectors? These includes eavesdropping. Eavesdropping means intercepting unencrypted voice calls. This can also be called as man in the middle because the voice call is intercepted by someone in the middle and he or she can listen to these voice calls if these are unencrypted. Phishing. So we saw phishing for email exploitation, then smishing for SMS. Now we have the phishing, that is voice phishing, tricking user into revealing sensitive information over the phone. And then man in the middle attack, as this same the case with the eavesdropping, it is intercepting and altering voice during transmission, voice data during transmission. The attacker can only intercept and listen to the conversation, or it can also be done to alter the voice data and then transmit it. Removable devices. So the attack surface of removable devices, of course, include the USB drive, the external hard drive, and the SD cards. These are basically used for transferring data from one computer or laptop to another. Ports on computer, laptops, other devices are connected to removable devices such as these USB ports. These are also attack surfaces and can be exploited. Device firmware and operating system drivers that interact with removable drivers. So when you connect the USB to your laptop, the laptop firmware operating system and their drivers of course interact with this USB, so they are also attack surface and can be compromised. So what are the threat vectors? Malware. So USB is the main delivery source for the malware spread. So spreading viruses or ransomware through infected removable devices. Remember we studied that the most famous Stuxnet virus was spread through the USB, which was used to attack the Iranian nuclear facility and centrifuge, and it was a joint operation attributed toward Israel and USA. So again, the Stuxnet was spread to the engineer's laptop through this USB, which were then used to connect to the systems inside the nuclear facilities. Data exfiltration, copying sensitive data from devices onto an unauthorized removable data, and bad USB, attacking devices via malicious firmware on USB devices. So another system is the vulnerable software, and these are either client-based or agentless. So what are the attack surface? Client-based software or vulnerable software has attack surface, which are software installed on user devices or server. For example, desktop application, email clients. So these email clients are desktop application. These are the attack surface, and in case of agentless software accessed remotely without installation on devices, for example, the cloud-based tool or web application, these are agentless as they are also attack surface. What are the threat vectors for client-based? Exploiting on-page vulnerability in installed software. So if you have software installed on your laptop or PC, and it has on-page vulnerabilities, these are basically threat vector that can be exploited. Privilege escalation through software bugs or configuration flaws. So if these software have some bugs embedded, they can also be used for privilege escalation. And in case of agentless, The threat vectors include exploiting flaws in web application or cloud services accessed remotely. And since these applications are accessed remotely, man-in-the-middle attacks targeting unencrypted connection between client and server. Since these are agent-led and accessed over the cloud or over the internet, if the connection are unencrypted, man-in-the-middle attack can occur. Unsecure wireless networks. So the attack surface is public or poorly configured Wi-Fi network, for example, open or weakly encrypted network. So remember the open or publicly available Wi-Fi networks such as the airport or at the cafes. They are very dangerous from cybersecurity security point of view to use. And the poor encrypted means if you use the legacy encryption mechanism such as WEP, which is very weak and compromised, it is also an attack surface and it is easily compromised. Again, the routers and access points with default or weak password. So if you have the Wi-Fi access points or routers with their default username and password, these can be easily guessed because each company router or access points have default username and password that are easily available over the internet and anyone can find it. So the device is connected to these wireless networks, for example, laptop, smartphone, and IoT devices, Internet of Things devices. They are also an attack surface for the attackers. So what are the threat vectors that can be used in the unsecured wireless network? The first one is the eavesdropping or packet sniffing. So intercepting unencrypted data transmitted over the network. So if you have no encryption employed over the Wi-Fi network or the encryption is weak, such as WEP, the packets can be sniffed and intercepted. Man-in-the-middle attacks, redirecting or altering communication between devices on the network. Again, these both go hand in hand. Once you receive or intercept the traffic, you can redirect it, you can alter it, and of course you can view it. And the last one threat vector is the rogue access point. So setting up fake network or access points to deceive user into connecting and then stealing their credential or their data. And the next one is the unsecure wired network. So wired network unsecured is has also attack surface and threat vector. The attack surface include, of course, the network cables and the physical connection, for example, Ethernet. The switches, routers, and network infrastructure devices. So these physical networks or LAN are of course connected through routers and switches. So of course they are also attack surface. And your devices that are connected to this wired network, including your desktop, your servers, and your printer, they are also an attack surface for the potential attackers. So the threat vectors include again packet sniffing, intercepting the unencrypted data transmitted over the network. If you use unsecure or unencrypted protocols, such as, for example, if you use FTP for the file transfer, so FTP uses unencrypted or plain text file transfer that can be easily intercepted. Similarly, if you use Telnet, it also uses unencrypted data transmission, so these can be easily intercepted. Man-in-the-middle attacks, again inserting malicious devices to alter or redirect network traffic, and unauthorized physical access, connecting unauthorized devices directly to the network to gain access. So if your network is exposed and let's suppose you have open network ports, so anyone can easily connect their devices to these ports, let's suppose Ethernet patch card, Ethernet cable, and connect to your network if it is open and there are no security policies or ACLs applied. Next one related to these network attacks is open service ports. So what are these? These are ports or services that are left open over the network and accessible from the public network or from the internet. So the attack surface include, of course, these network ports left open to the internet or internal network. For example, HTTP, FTP, and SSH. So if these ports are left open unnecessarily, they can be accessible. They can be accessed by the potential attacker and can be exploited. So they present an attack surface. Similarly, services running on these open ports. So, for example, web server run on the HTTP. FTP is used for file transfer. So, file transfer services run on FTP, and the SSH is used for remote connection and for remote administration. So services that run on these ports, such as if database port are open, and remote access services such as SSH, they can also be exploited. And network devices and firewall that control access to open port. So the network devices that connect these physical network or these open port, they can also be exploited, and they also present an attack surface. So what are the threat vectors? These include port scanning, identifying open ports to find vulnerable services to exploit. So the threat vector is that if your ports are open, anyone can easily access scan these open ports and access it. For example, as you can see in this picture, this command, the nmap and these flags along with this network given, you can run this command from any Linux operating system, and you can see the open ports available. Similarly, on Windows, the nmap is a very small application. You can download it. You can give the target IP address or even the network, and it can scan it for you and give you the open or available ports. So exploiting on-page services, attacking vulnerabilities in service running on open ports. So once you have these open ports, you can then look for the ports that has vulnerabilities. For example, let's suppose this 514, this has the service shell. Now the vulnerability database is available, and you can look for the vulnerabilities that are available in this particular service and then exploit it. Brute force attack, attempting to gain unauthorized access to services like SSH or FTP through password guessing. So as we said that SSH is used for remote login. So if SSH port is open, SSH basically works on port 22. You can launch the brute force attack by launching different combination of passwords and username, and if the attacker is lucky, he or she can gain access to your system, whether it is the network device or a server. Default credential, very common and very dangerous type of attack, because mostly when we use the network devices or all type of appliances such as these access points, all of these have some default credential, and the default credentials are also available on the web published by their manufacturer. For example, if you have particular router and you just look up its model number or its name on the internet for default username and password, you can easily get it. So if you don't change these default credential, anyone having access to this router or any device can easily look up the model on the internet and can potentially access it. So devices and software that come with preset or factory default username and password, for example, router, IoT devices and databases, access control system and login interfaces that still use default credential. So access control system, again, it means the firewalls and these routers that have the web interfaces to access it, but they have the default credential. Threat vectors include brute force attacks, attempting the default credential across many devices to gain unauthorized access. So if these devices have the web interface available over the internet, anyone can launch the brute force attack, exploiting default admin accounts, gaining full control over the system using easily guessable default password. As I said, The default credentials are easily available over the internet, and if someone knows that this model is connected over this IP, he or she can easily access it. Privilege escalation using default credential to elevate access rights and compromise systems. So once inside this device, the attacker can then connect to other devices and escalate his or her privileges. Next one is phishing, wishing, and smishing. And phishing is of course for email, wishing is for voice call, and smishing is for SMS. So the attack surface of all these include email system is for phishing, as we already studied, voice communication for phishing, and SMS for smishing, and of course the user authentication mechanisms such as login pages and phone numbers that are used across all these services. Threat actors include phishing, so sending fraudulent emails with malicious links; wishing, using voice calls to impersonate trusted entities and trick victims into sharing sensitive data; and smishing, sending fraudulent SMS messages containing malicious links or phone numbers to steal personal information or install malware. So next one is misinformation or disinformation. So this is also a threat, and the attack surface includes social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter, news websites and blogs, and messaging apps and email system used for sharing information. Threat vectors include, of course, through these fake news or disinformation. Social engineering of employees can be done, spreading false information to manipulate or deceive individuals or groups. Media manipulation, creating or altering content, for example, images or videos to mislead or cause harm. And the fake website and ads, creating fraudulent website or ad to spread false information or direct users to malicious content. The next one is impersonation. The attack surface include the communication system, for example, email, social media, and phone networks. These systems can be used by the attackers to impersonate digital identities and user profiles, for example, usernames, social media accounts. So you don't know who is behind this username, who is behind this social media account, for example, Facebook account, because it can easily be made with any name and with any profile picture, but you don't know the true identity of the account holder. Authentication mechanisms such as password recovery and two-factor authentication. So these password recovery and two-factor authentication, they can also be exploited. And the threat vectors include email spoofing, again, sending emails that appear to come from a trusted source to deceive recipients. So, for example, the email sender can impersonate to be the CEO of your organization. So, this comes in spoofing. Social engineering, pretending to be someone else over the phone or via text messaging to extract sensitive information. Again, the same example. Someone may be pretending to be CFO and can trick an employee of the company to send to extract sensitive information or transfer funds, etc. And deepfakes, so using AI to create realistic fake images, videos, or audio of a person to impersonate them. So this is a new and upcoming threat vector. With the advancement of the AI, very credible looking video of someone, let's suppose, for example, your company CEO, can be made and sent to the employee for any malicious purpose. Business email compromise. So again, we are talking about the business, and the attack surface again include the email system and corporate email accounts, internal communication networks and documents, for example, invoices, payment request, and user authentication mechanism, against login credential and the two-factor authentication. And threat vectors include, again, email spoofing, sending, again, fraudulent emails that appear to come from a trusted executive to manipulate financial transactions; social engineering, that is manipulating employees into wiring money, disclosing sensitive information; and phishing, using fake emails to steal login credentials and gain unauthorized access to company systems. And the next one is pre-texting. So what is pretexting? Again, pretexting is something like impersonation. It is basically a social engineering attack where the attacker fabricates a very convincing scenario or makes a very convincing identity to manipulate the victim into exposing or divulging sensitive information. So the attack surface again includes the communication channel, phone, email, social media, and the personal or corporate information used as a basis for deception, employee record, financial data. So if your company has an official website and publicly available information that can be used to deceive the employees of your organization, authentication system and procedure, for example, security question, identity verification, etc. And threat vectors include impersonating authority, attackers pretending to be a trusted figure, for example, HRIT support to extract sensitive information, fake scenarios, crafting false stories or pretexts to persuade victims into disclosing confidential information, and social engineering attacks such as using gathered information to build credibility and manipulate victims into trusting the attacker. So watering hole. So the watering hole attack is basically compromising a website that is frequently visited by the target or users to deliver malware. So the attack surface include popular public-facing websites and third-party plugin ads or widgets that are available on these sites and user devices accessing these sites. And threat vectors include malicious code injection into these websites, exploiting vulnerability to embed malware in the website's code. Drive-by download means that automatically downloading malware when visiting the infected site. Brand impersonation. So the attack surface include official websites, social media accounts, and communication channels of the brand. So let's suppose, for example, we have a popular brand, something like, let's suppose, Nike. So the official websites of Nike, their social media account can be impersonated. Instead of Nike, the attacker can use an impersonated domain such as NIKEE. So something like that. Customer service and support platforms, for example, live chat and help desk. This can also present an attack surface, and of course the email system and digital advertisement. Threat vectors include fake websites. So creating counterfeit websites that look like the legitimate brand site to steal customer data or conduct fraud. Social media impersonation using fake social media accounts to pose as the brand and trick customers, and fake advertisements running deceptive ads that mislead users into thinking they are engaging with the brand. So a related attack is the typo squatting. So what does this mean? It means that, let's suppose here we can see we have a popular website google.com. Type of squatting means that slightly changing this name, like this google.com, and impersonating again as a brand, but this time specifically for the domain names and email names. By typo means that you have a slightly changed typo from the original brand domain name or email name. So attack surface include domain names and URL that resemble popular websites or brand names with minor typographical errors. Internet browsers and search engines that autocorrect or suggest similar domains are publicly available websites and online services. Threat vectors include fake websites creating domains that closely resemble legitimate sites to trick users into visiting, such as this one. Phishing using typo-squatted domains to send emails or ads that appear legitimate, leading to fraudulent sites. And brand reputation damage, misleading users into thinking they are interacting with the original brand, damaging trust and causing confusion. Objective 2.2, explain common threat vectors and attack surfaces. So let's first explain the attack surface and threat vectors and the difference between these two. So the attack surface is basically the total number of points or paths through which an attacker could try to access or exploit a system. So as the definition explained, it is the total number of ways or entry points through which a system can be exploited. An example include external attack surface is any attack surface that is publicly visible. For example, public facing servers, websites, and API. An example of this is any website when you type www. Let's suppose google.com. So since this web server or website is publicly available, it is public facing, so this is an external attack surface. There may be internal databases or other servers that are not visible behind this network. They may be the internal attack surface. So vulnerabilities in internal software, misconfigured databases. Databases are usually not accessible externally. They are behind the firewalls and inside internal network or employee devices. Similarly, another example may be the physical attack surface, for example, office doors, USB ports on your laptop or PC, or devices that are left unsecured. The second thing that we need to explain is what is the threat vector. So, threat vector is basically the methods or pathways used by attackers to breach or compromise a system. An example includes email phishing. So the email phishing is basically used to compromise the users for their credentials through certain websites. Email are basically used for sending malicious links or attachments. So basically email is, you can say that email or email phishing is basically the threat vector because it is the method or path through which users are compromised. Similarly, malware delivery. So basically the a threat is malware, but the threat vector is, it may be the USB or other infected software. Similarly, there are network-based attacks that can act as threat vector, exploiting unpaged system via open ports or weak firewall. So, for example, you have a firewall, but the firewall policies are weak, or it is not properly configured. So, this is again a threat vector to which an attacker can enter your internal or private network. Similarly, there are insider threat, employees with malicious intent or careless action. So these are your internal employees which have legitimate access to your system and data, but they can also be threat vectors. They may be threat vectors for other organizations or for nation state actors. So let me further explain these two with the help of an analogy, and think of your system or your database or your network as a house. So for example, your assets or your network that you want to protect, it is just like your own house. So the attack surface is like all the potential entry points into the house. Entry points may include the front door, the back door, windows, chimney, or even there may be some cracks in the walls. The more entry points, the larger the attack surface. So whenever you want to secure your system or network, what you have to do, the first and the most important thing is that you need to reduce the attack surface. For example, if it was your house, you want to remove the unnecessary doors, you want to close the chimney, you want to reinforce the windows and do not let it open when the house is unattended. And the threat vectors are the ways a burglar might exploit those entry points to enter your house. For example, picking the lock of the door, breaking a window, climbing through the chimney, or sneaking through in an open window. So again, the relationship is that the attack surface represents the possible places an attack could occur, while the threat vector represents the techniques used to exploit those places. A house with more entry points, that means larger attack surface, offers a burglar more opportunities to choose a specific threat vector. So the lesser or the lower the attack surface, the more secure the system is. And if the attack surface is large, meaning there are more entry points, less secure is your system or network. So now let's explain a few of the technologies or few of the communication systems and differentiate that what are their threat vectors and what is the attack surface of these systems. First one is the email. So what is the attack surface of an email? These may include the email servers, for example, the SMTP, IMAP, and POP3. So all these have different ports number on which these email servers work. So these port number, these are basically the protocol on which these email servers work. So this is an attack surface. Instead of exploiting the individual clients, the attacker may directly compromise the email servers. User email clients, again, along with the servers, each user has a client. The user may be using the client on a desktop or a mobile client, or it may be just web-based. So when you receive email and when you do email communication, each email communication have links. There may be web links inside your email, and email has the attachments as well. So these are also the attack surface which could be exploited. So when you log into your email system, you use username and password, and you may be using multi-factor authentication such as your Google Authenticator app, or there may be other authentication factors such as biometrics. So these are also attack surfaces which could be exploited. So what are threat vectors? So the first one is, in the first most important one, is the phishing. So this is sending deceptive emails to trick users into revealing sensitive information. And another one is spoofing. So pretending to be a trusted sender to deceive recipients. For example, sending a company employees an email and pretend to be the, let's suppose, the CEO, spoofing to be the CEO and deceiving the employees of the company. Again, the credential theft, harvesting login credential via fake login pages or keyloggers. So these are the threat vectors. Second thing is the SMS. So this is also the messaging, but it is through the mobile. And the attack surface for SMS include, of course, the mobile devices or the smartphones that receive and send the SMS, the cellular network of your service provider, including the 4G, 5G, SMS gateways and API used by the applications, the SIM card that is used to send or receive SMS. It could also be exploited, and it is also an attack surface. So what are the threat vectors? Smishing. So smishing basically stands for SMS phishing. So this is phishing but using the SMS. Again, just like an email, sending fraudulent messages to trick users into clicking malicious links or sharing personal information. SIM sweeping. So since SIM, we said that it is an attack surface. So how could this be a threat vector? It can be by hijacking the victim's phone number by transferring it to another SIM card. You have a SIM card, the attacker may have an empty SIM card, and he or she may swap your number from your SIM to their SIM. This is known as SIM swapping. Malware delivery, so using links or files sent via SMS to infect devices. And spoofing. So as we can see that the attack surface and the threat vectors of SMS and emails are very identical. So spoofing, again, sending messages that appear to come from trusted contacts or organizations. The next one is instant messaging. Again, this is related to messaging, but this time it is instant messaging, and the attack surface include messaging apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, or Slack, and the servers hosting these messaging platform. For example, the WhatsApp server, the Telegram server, or Slack server. These are also attack surface and can be compromised. User devices like smartphones and desktops on which these apps are used. And again, these apps have also the uh, uh, facility of links, attachments, and media can also be shared through these apps. So these are also potential attack surfaces. So what are the threat vectors? These include social engineering. The message is crafted to deceive user into sharing sensitive information. Users can be deceived through social engineering techniques. Malware, again, sending infected files or links that lead to malware installation on the devices such as smartphone and desktop. And account takeover, exploiting weak credentials or session hijacking. And the next one is image-based communication or systems. So far we are talking about mostly the text-based communication, such as the SMS, email, and other WhatsApp are primarily used for text communication. So what are the threat vector and attack surface in image-based communication? The attack surface may include the image sharing platforms such as Instagram and Snapchat, which have the primary purpose of sharing images, pictures, and videos. Image rendering library on the devices. Metadata within images. So each image has metadata such as GPS coordinates, device details, time, etc., at which the image were taken. So what are the threat vectors? Steganography. So we studied in domain 1 that steganography is the art of hiding data inside unsuspicious sources such as images or videos. So embedding malicious code or data within image files. This is known as steganography. It is very important. Malware injection, so exploiting vulnerabilities in image parsing libraries. And metadata exposure, extracting sensitive information hidden in image metadata. So the next one is the file-based communication or systems. And the attack surface include file storage systems such as cloud storage or local servers. File transfer protocol, FTP, SFTP. So the SFTP sends file without encryption. S here stands for secure. SFTP use encryption. So these file protocols may also be file transfer protocol are also attack surfaces and may be exploited. User devices accessing files, for example, computer and mobile devices that use these transfer protocols for sending or receiving files. Threat vectors include malware, again infecting files with viruses or ransomware. File injection, so inserting malicious code into trusted file types, for example, PDF, Word documents. So these Word documents and PDF files may become a delivery for malware and other malicious codes. And exploitation of file sharing vulnerabilities using flaws in the file transfer protocol such as FTP, SFTP, or software to gain unauthorized access. The next one is the voice call. So the attacks for surface of the voice call includes the VoIP system, that is voice over IP system, and the popular systems that work on VoIP system that work using the technology voice over IP are Skype, Zoom, and Teams. So remember when the Zoom first came during the COVID, there were many instances since it was new that Visa and this application was exploited, and the conferences and the meeting during the Zoom sessions were hijacked. So the another attack surface for voice call is mobile and landline networks that are used for the voice communication devices, smartphones, IP phones. And what are the threat vectors? These include eavesdropping. Eavesdropping means intercepting unencrypted voice calls. This can also be called as man in the middle because the voice call is intercepted by someone in the middle and he or she can listen to these voice calls if these are unencrypted. Wishing. So we saw phishing for email exploitation, then smishing for SMS. Now we have the wishing, that is voice phishing, tricking user into revealing sensitive information over the phone. And then man in the middle attack, as this the same the case with the eavesdropping, it is intercepting and altering voice data during transmission. The attacker can only intercept and listen to the conversation, or it can also be done to alter the voice data and then transmit it. Removable devices. So the attack surface of removable devices, of course, include the USB drive, the external hard drive, and the SD cards. These are basically used for transferring data from one computer or laptop to another. Ports on computer, laptops, other devices are connected to removable devices, such as these USB ports. These are also attack surfaces and can be exploited. Device firmware and operating system drivers that interact with removable drivers. So when you connect the USB to your laptop, the laptop firmware, operating system, and their drivers, of course, interact with this USB. So they are also attack surface and can be compromised. So what are the threat vectors? Malware. So USB is the main delivery source for the malware spread. So spreading viruses or ransomware through infected removable devices. Remember, we studied that the most famous Stuxnet virus was spread through the USB, which was used to attack the Iranian nuclear facility and centrifuge, and it was a joint operation attributed toward Israel and USA. So again, the Stuxnet was spread to the engineer's laptop through this USB, which were then used to connect to the systems inside the nuclear facilities. Data exfiltration, copying sensitive data from devices onto an unauthorized removable data, and bad USB attacking devices via malicious firmware on USB devices. So another system is the vulnerable software, and these are either client-based or agentless. So what are the attack surface? Client-based software or vulnerable software has attack surface, which are software installed on user devices or server. For example, desktop application, email clients. So these email clients are desktop application. These are the attack surface, and in case of agentless software accessed remotely without installation on devices, for example, the cloud-based tool or web application, these are agentless as they are also attack surface. What are the threat vectors for client-based? Exploiting unpatched vulnerability in installed software. So if you have software installed on your laptop or PC, and it has unpatched vulnerabilities, these are basically threat vector that can be exploited. Privilege escalation through software bugs or configuration flaws. So if these software have some bugs embedded, they can also be used for privilege escalation. And in case of agentless, the threat vectors include exploiting flaws in web application or cloud services accessed remotely. And since these applications are accessed remotely, man-in-the-middle attacks targeting unencrypted connection between client and server. Since these are agent-led and accessed over the cloud or over the internet, if the connection are unencrypted, man-in-the-middle attack can occur. Objective 2.4, Indicators of malicious activity. So what is the indicators of malicious activity? What does we mean by the indicators of malicious activity? So the definition is that observable signs or evidence that suggest a security breach or cyber attack is occurring or has occurred. And its purpose is that it helps detect, investigate, and respond to potential threats or breaches in real time. For example, some examples. So these indicators of malicious activity or indicators of compromise is also written as IOC, indicator of compromise. Example include unusual network traffic, unauthorized file access, abnormal system behavior, and unfamiliar processes running. So now we will go through some of the indicators of malicious activity. For example, the first one is account lockout. Multiple failed login attempts leading to account lockouts indicating brute force or credential stuffing attacks. So if your organization uses accounts are logging out, it means that someone is trying a brute force attack to crack the password, and as a resultant, the system has logged out the account as per the login try policy. So there is a specific feature inside Windows and other operating system that you can configure, and you can say that when user type 5 times incorrect password, the account will be locked for this much time. Let's suppose 10 minutes. So if your accounts are locking out, it means that someone is trying paid login attempts. Blocked content attempts to access malicious websites, blocked URL, or prohibited content, indicating potential malware or phishing attempt. So if there is a attempt from your network to access blocked or malicious websites, it means that malware or phishing attempts are going on inside your network. Resource consumption, abnormal CPU, memory, or bandwidth usage, possibly due to malware or unauthorized process. So, if there is a huge resource or a huge spike in resource consumption that is abnormal, this means that something fishy is going on. Missing logs, gaps in log records, suggesting that an attacker may have disabled logging to hide their action. So, if logs are missing, of is or if some logs are deleted, it means that attacker is trying to remove or disable the attack tracks. Concurrent session usage. So multiple simultaneous logins to the same account from different devices or location, which could indicate unauthorized access or credential compromise. So let's suppose if user A is inside the company right now, and his account has been logged in from a distant place or from another country, it means that his account has been compromised. Impossible travel time. A user logs in from two geographically distant locations within an unusually short time frame, suggesting session hijacking or stolen credentials. So this is similar to concurrent session usage. Again, if a user logs in from a city at 1 p.m. and then at 1:30 p.m. He logs from another city whose distance is more than 2 to 3 hours travel time, it means that this impossible travel time means that his account has been hijacked or credential has been stolen. Resource inaccessibility. A legitimate user cannot access required resources due to intentional or unintentional restriction, which could indicate an attack or misconfiguration. Out of cycle logging. Logging are events occurring outside the normal operational hours or schedule, possibly indicating malicious activity or unauthorized access attempt. So, if there are some logs that are occurring at odd hours or after office hours, it means that someone is trying to break into the network after the office hours. Published documented information that is publicly available, for example, in a knowledge base or website, and potentially exploited by attackers to target systems, application, or users. So now we will go through different malware and different attack types, and we'll see that what are the indicators of compromise of these malware and attacks. The first one is ransomware. So ransomware, as we already studied, is a malicious software that encrypts a victim files or locks their system, demanding a ransom for decryption. It can be prevented through regular backing up data and storing it offline, and using endpoint protection with real-time malware detection, and keeping the software and system up to date with the latest security patches. So what are the indicators of compromise of the ransomware attack? Unusual file extension or encrypted files with ransom nodes, such as this one. So this is the most obvious one, that your system has been compromised with the ransomware. Sudden system slowdown or unresponsive devices. alert messages demanding payment in cryptocurrency, such as again this one, and suspicious processes or network traffic to non malicious IPs. So this ransomware is the type of malware. So now we are talking about different malwares and their IOCs are indicator of compromise. So the next one is Trojan. So Trojan is a type of malware disguised as a legitimate program or file designed to gain unauthorized access to a system or steal sensitive data. What does this mean? Legitimate program. For example, you may download a game from, let's suppose, Play Store. So on the front end, it may seem like a game, but at the back end, it will try or to access your system and steal sensitive data or your mobile or laptop and PC. Prevention. So install and maintain up-to-date antivirus and anti-malware. Use firewalls and restrict unnecessary systems access. So when you install program and they demand unnecessary access, don't give them blank check access. Educate users about phishing attacks and suspicious email links and attachments. What are the indicators of compromise? Unexpected system behavior or performance issues, detection of unfamiliar processes running in the background, and unexplained data transfer or connection to unknown IP addresses. So the next malware type is worm. So it is a self-replicating malware that spread across network without user intervention, often exploiting vulnerabilities in software or systems. Prevention. Apply security patches and update all systems regularly. Use firewalls and network segmentation to limit the spread and disable unnecessary file sharing and remote access services. Indicators of compromise include unusual and rapid network traffic pattern, increased system resource usage or system slowdown, detection of unknown processes or files spreading across multiple devices, and unexpected system crashes or failures. So the next malware is spyware. So spyware is a malicious software designed to secretly monitor and collect user data such as keystrokes, browsing habits, or sensitive information without consent. Prevention. Install and update reputable anti-spyware tools. Avoid downloading software or clicking on ads from untrusted websites, and regularly update software and operating systems to patch vulnerabilities. What are the indicators of compromise? It includes unusual system slowdowns or frequent crashes, unexpected pop-ups or ads even without a browser open, increased network activity without user initiated action, and unauthorized changes to browser settings or home pages. The next malware type is the bloatware. So it is a pre-installed or unnecessary software on devices that consume system resources and may pose security risk as well. Prevention include purchasing devices with minimal pre-installed software or opt for clean installation, regularly reviewing and uninstalling unused or unnecessary application, and using third-party tools to detect and remove bundled software. Indicators of compromise include reduced system performance due to excessive resource usage, frequent pop-ups or prompts encouraging the use of unnecessary applications, and reduced storage space from unwanted application taking up memory. The next malware type is virus. So virus is a malicious software that attaches itself to legitimate programs or files and spreads when the host is executed, causing damage or disruption. Prevention include using reliable antivirus software and keeping it updated, avoiding downloading or opening files from untrusted sources, regularly updating operating systems and applications to patch vulnerabilities, and educating users about safe browsing and email practices. Indicators of compromise include slow or crashing systems, unexpected pop-ups, error messages, or unusual system behavior, and increased network activity or unexplained data transfers. So the next malware type is the keylogger. It is a malicious software or hardware that records keystrokes to capture sensitive information such as passwords or credit card numbers. Prevention include again using reputable anti-malware tool with real-time protection enabled, regularly updating systems and applications to address vulnerabilities, and enabling multi-factor authentication to secure accounts. Indicators of compromise include unusual lag when typing or system slowdowns, unexpected pop-ups or applications running in the background, outbound network traffic to unknown IP addresses, and discovery of suspicious or unfamiliar files related to logging activity. The next malware type is the logic bomb. So logic bomb is a malicious code embedded within a legitimate program that activates when specific conditions are met, such as a date or user action. Prevention include conducting regular code audits and scans to detect unauthorized changes, monitoring system activity for unusual behavior or unauthorized modification, and implementing robust backup and recovery procedures. Indicators of compromise include unexpected system failure or performance issue when certain conditions are triggered, sudden deletion or corruption of files, and discovery of suspicious or unfamiliar code during routine audits. Another malware type is the rootkit, and it is a stealthy malware designed to gain and maintain privileged access to a system while hiding its presence from detection tools. Prevention include using secure boot features to prevent unauthorized kernel level changes, installing and updating antivirus and anti-rootkit software, and regularly patching and updating operating systems and firmware. Indicators of compromise include or un, disabling unresponsive security disabled or unresponsive security tools, unexpected system crashes or performance degradation, presence of hidden processes or files, and detection of unusual or unauthorized kernel level activity. So remember that rootkit is difficult to detect and remove because it is in the firmware and embedded at the kernel level. Such as this picture indicate, it is basically most of the time embedded inside the BIOS. So usually normal antivirus do not scan or check the BIOS. They usually work over the application or operating system. So now the indicator of physical attacks, and the first one is the brute force. So brute force basically it is physically attempting to break into devices such as guessing pins, passwords, or using tools to bypass physical locks. Since we are talking about physical attacks, and prevention include using tamper-proof hardware, biometric authentication, and account lockout mechanism. Indicators of compromise include repeated failed login attempts, physical damage or tampering with devices or locks, and sudden activation of alarm or security systems. So the next physical attack is radio frequency, that is RFID cloning, radio frequency identification or RFID cloning. So copying data from RFID tags using special equipment to replicate and misuse credential or access cards. Prevention include using RFID shields, encryption on tags, and access controls to prevent unauthorized cloning. Indicators of compromise include duplicate credentials accessing systems or facilities, unauthorized access attempts from cloned RFID cards, and suspicious proximity device activity near RFID readers. Another physical attack and its indicators include the environmental. So it is exploiting environmental vulnerabilities such as overheating, power outages, or physical damage to the infrastructure. Prevention include deploying proper environmental controls such as temperature regulation, uninterrupted power supply that is UPS, and physical protection against tampering or natural disasters. Indicators of compromise include unusual temperature changes or alarms in server rooms, unexpected system shutdowns due to power disruptions, and physical signs of tampering with environmental controls or infrastructure. So now some of the indicators of network attacks, and the first one is DDoS or distributed denial of service attack. So it is overwhelming a target's network or services with massive amount of traffic from multiple sources to disrupt operations. And prevention include using DDoS protection services and web application firewall that is WAF, implementing rate limiting and traffic filtering, and monitoring network traffic for anomalies. Indicators of compromise include sudden spikes in incoming traffic from multiple IPs and network slowdowns or unavailability. So there are multiple types of the DDoS attack. One is the amplified DDoS. So it is using vulnerable servers to magnify attack traffic by sending small requests that result in large responses directed at the victim. Prevention includes secure open resolvers and disable unnecessary services, and use source IP filtering to block spoofed traffic. Indicators of compromise include traffic from unknown amplification vectors such as a DNS or NTP server, and high volume of outbound responses from internal services. Another type of DDoS attack is the reflected DDoS. So it is exploiting legitimate servers to reflect traffic to the target by spoofing the victim's IP address. Prevention include configuring servers to only respond to legitimate traffic, and implementing ingress and egress filtering to block spoofed packets. Indicators of compromise include unusual pattern of unsolicited responses from trusted services, and increased traffic with spoofed source IPs. So now some of the DNS attacks that is also in the category of network attacks. So first one is DNS spoofing or cache poisoning. So it is inserting fake DNS records to redirect user to malicious websites. Prevention include using DNSSEC or DNS security, clear DNS cache regularly. Indicators of compromise include unusual redirects and altered DNS records. Second one is DNS amplification. So this is the exploiting DNS servers to flood a victim with traffic. Prevention include disabling open recursion and rate limiting DNS requests. And indicator of compromises include traffic spikes and excessive DNS responses. Another one is DNS hijacking. It is unauthorized access to modify domain registration details, and prevention include using domain locks and enabling two-factor authentication. So now some wireless network attacks. The first one is sniffing or eavesdropping. So it is intercepting wireless network traffic to capture sensitive information. Prevention include using WPA3 encryption, which is the latest Wi-Fi encryption standard, securing the wireless network with strong passwords. Indicators of compromise include unusual network traffic, unauthorized devices connected to the network. Second wireless attack is the rogue access point. It is basically unauthorized wireless access point set up to intercept or manipulate traffic, such as this one. Prevention include implementing network monitoring, disabling unused ports, and using strong encryption. And indicators of compromise include detection of unknown SSIDs or access points and traffic routed through unknown devices. Another wireless network attack is man-in-the-middle attack or MITM, which is when an attacker intercepts communication between two devices and tries to steal data. Prevention include using the secure protocols such as HTTPS and SSL/TLS encryption and VPNs for secure communication. Indicators of compromise include unusual traffic routing, certificate warning, and dropped connections. Another wireless network attack is Evil Twin. It is a rogue access point mimicking a legitimate one to steal data from unsuspecting users. Prevention include verifying network connections, using secure passwords, and avoiding using open network. Indicators of compromise include connection to unknown SSID and unusual traffic pattern. Another network attack is the on-path attack, which is when an attacker intercepts and potentially alters communication between two parties without their knowledge, such as this one. Prevention include using end-to-end encryption such as HTTPS, TLS, or VPN, enabling mutual authentication to verify identities, and using VPNs to secure traffic. Indicators of compromise includes unexpected certificate warnings or errors, unusual traffic patterns such as unexpected IP addresses or routing, and drops in connection or interruptions in communication. Another network attack include the credentials replace. So it is when an attacker intercepts valid authentication credentials and reuse them to gain unauthorized access to a system. Prevention include using multi-factor authentication (MFA), implementing encryption such as TLS to protect credentials during transmission, and applying time-sensitive tokens and session expiration policies. Indicators of compromise include repeated login attempts with valid credentials from different locations and logs showing unusual authentication behavior such as multiple sessions with the same credentials. Next one is malicious code. So it is a software or scripts intentionally designed to harm, exploit, or gain unauthorized access to a system. And prevention include regularly updating software and patching it, using anti-malware tools and firewalls, and implementing input validation and code review practices. Indicators of compromise include unexpected changes in system files or behavior, detection of malware by security software, and unusual network traffic or unauthorized system processes. So now some application attacks. And the first one is injection. So it is inserting malicious code into an input field to be executed by the application, such as SQL or command injection. Prevention include using parameterized queries, input validation, and proper error handling. Indicators of compromises include suspicious input patterns, unusual database queries, and or error messages showing system information. Another application attack is buffer overflow, which is writing more data to a buffer than it can handle, causing memory corruption and potentially arbitrary code execution. Prevention include using bound checking, secure code practices, and memory-safe languages. And indicators of compromise include system crashes or unexpected behavior, errors involving memory addresses. Another application attack is the replay attack, which is intercepting and retransmitting valid communication to gain unauthorized access or disrupt services. Prevention include using time-sensitive tokens, nonces, or digital signature to ensure communication is not reused. Indicators of compromise include identical request or response being sent multiple times, repeated authentication attempts. Another attack is privilege escalation, which is gaining higher level access or permissions than originally granted, often by exploiting flaws in the system. Prevention include applying the principle of least privilege, regularly updating and patching system, and audit access control configuration. Indicators of compromise include unusual access patterns, unauthorized changes in user roles or permissions, or unexpected administrative actions. Another application attack is forgery, which is creating false data or requests to deceive the system or users, such as cross-site request forgery or CSRF. Prevention include CSRF or cross-site request forgery tokens, input validation, and proper session management. Indicators of compromise include unusual or unauthorized requests, unexpected changes in user profiles or configurations. Another application attack is directory traversal, which is exploiting an application's vulnerability to access directories or files outside the intended directory. Prevention include implementing proper input sanitization, validate file paths, and use whitelist for accessible directories. Indicators of compromise include access attempts to sensitive files or directories outside the application's designated paths. And another attack type is now the cryptographic attacks, and the first one is the downgrade attacks. So it is the definition is to force a system to use weaker encryption or security protocols by exploiting the ability to roll back to a less secure version. Prevention include enforcing strong encryption standards, disabling outdated protocols, and ensure proper validation of security versions. Indicators of compromises include detection of deprecated encryption algorithms or version rollbacks in logs. Another cryptographic attack type is the collision attack, which is finding two different inputs that produce the same hash value. So this is against the hashing algorithm. Prevention include using cryptographic hash functions with strong resistance to collision, such as SHA-256 or SHA-3. So MD5, which is also a hashing function, is an old hashing algorithm, and this is susceptible to this collision attack. So this one should not be used. Indicators of compromise include unexpected matching hash values for different data inputs. Another cryptographic attack is the birthday attack, which is a type of collision attack that exploits the birthday paradox to find matching hash values faster than the brute force. Prevention include using longer hash functions and cryptographic algorithms with a large enough output size. Indicators of compromise include repeated attempts to generate collision or hashes matching across different inputs. So now some password attacks, and the first one is password spraying. So it is attempting to access multiple accounts with a few commonly used passwords, instead of trying many passwords for a one account. And prevention include implementing account lockout policies, using multi-factor authentication, and enforcing strong password policies. Indicators of compromise include multiple failed login attempts across many accounts with the same password and unusual login patterns. Another one is the brute force attack, which is trying every possible combination of characters to guess a password. Prevention include enforce strong complex password using CAPTCHA and apply account lockout after multiple failed attempts. Indicators of compromise include high volume of failed login attempts and repeated login attempts from the same source IP. Objective 2.5 Mitigation Techniques to Secure Enterprise. So far we have studied the threats and vulnerabilities in domain 2, and now the last part is how to mitigate these threats and vulnerabilities to secure your enterprise. So let's start. So the first one and most important one is the segmentation, that is divided your network into different segments. So the purpose of segmentation is that it divides a network into smaller and isolated segments. Segmentation purpose is to limit the spread of the attack. What does this mean? It means that even if one part of your network is, let's suppose, compromised, let's suppose if these servers are compromised, the compromise and attack will be limited only to this segment, and this segment will still be secure and protected from this attack because it is isolated and protected by this firewall, or maybe we have another firewall over here. Improve the network performance. So it also improves network performance. If you know the basic of networking, that there is a term broadcast. So the device is within the same VLAN where they want to send traffic to another device. They broadcast the packet if they don't know the MAC address, and this is sent then to all these devices. So let's suppose if these whole devices were in the same VLAN or in a same segment, then the broadcast will be spread to all these devices, which reduces the network performance and flood the unnecessary traffic to all devices. And control traffic flow. So again, you can control the traffic flow, that let's suppose is someone from the internet, let's suppose you have a remote employee over there and he wants to access this particular segment. You can control that this device can access only this segment and not these ones. Enhance security by containing breaches within specific area. So again, this is related to this point, that if there is a security breach in one segment, other segments are protected, and prevent lateral movement across the entire network. Again, this is also the related point, that if one server is compromised, you can prevent the spread to all other network segments because they are separated from this segment, and the lateral movement will be at max limited to only this segment. Lateral movements mean that when one server compromised, the malware spread from one to other, and then to other, and then to other. So if you have segmented the network, the spread will be only limited to one segment. Mitigation includes that it helps limits the access to sensitive data and systems, as we studied. So let's suppose if you want to restrict external access to only the required server, let's suppose these are your web servers, and you have sensitive private data in this segment, it will be prevented and it will be secure because no external access is allowed to these servers. Reduce the impact of a potential breach by restricting the scope of compromised system, limit the blast radius. So this is another term, as I already described. Blast radius means that when one server or one system is compromised, the blast radius or the damage is limited to a specific radius, let's suppose this segment, and other servers and systems are protected, and allow far more granular control over security policies within different network segments. So when you have different VLANs and different segment, you can control the communication between them through the firewall, ACLs, and security policies. So these are some of the popular example that how we do segmentation. Demilitarized zone, this is a popular term, DMZ, that you must have heard. And this segment houses public facing servers like web and email servers, isolating them from the internal network. So when you have some server, let's suppose, for example, a proxy server or a web server that must be accessed from the external or from the internet, then you can place these servers behind a firewall, and this zone is usually known as DMZ. And this is separated from your other internal servers and internal network. So this helps the security of the internal private network, because only your DMZ servers are accessible from the external network, and even if they are compromised, your internal network won't be breached. Another zone is there, as we can see in this picture, the intranet or your internal network. This segment contains internal servers and resources accessible only to authorized users within the organization. So this file transfer server, this is accessible within the organization, not from external network. And this internal network usually contains database servers. So database servers are highly sensitive server because they contain the actual sensitive data, and maybe application server. So usually the web servers are those that are accessible from the external network, such as internet, and all other servers such as database server, file server, or even application server are inside your internal network. And management on this segment is used for network administration and monitoring, keeping it separate from general user traffic. So of course, you have to manage these servers, either the DMZ servers and the internal servers. So there is another network that is known as the management network, where basically your administrator use this network to access these servers and manage them, configure them. So this is also a separate network, and only authorized users such as the administrator of these servers can have access to these network to manage and monitor these servers. Another related term, and most usually this term is related to the SDN, software defined networking, and the cloud, and this is known as microsegmentation. So this is another level of granular segmentation as opposed to the segmentation. And the purpose of microsegmentation is that it further divides network segments into smaller, more granular, to apply security policies at very detailed level, often down to individual workloads or devices. What does this mean? Let me get back to the previous slide. Let me get back. So let me first clear this screen. Thank God. So as I said, traditionally in segmentation, we segment the network into different segment of servers or devices. So this is one segment. Let's suppose this is segment 2, this is segment 3, let's suppose this is segment 4, and so on and so forth. In micro segmentation, we further divide each segment into individual device, or at individual device or VM level. What does this mean? That you can control the traffic even between these individual devices within the same segment, and this is more secure and more controlled and granular. So as I said in the segmentation, that if one server is compromised over here, let's suppose if this one is compromised, the attack may spread to the other servers within the same network. But in micro segmentation, the compromise is limited to the individual VM or the individual server, because if the communication between these individual VM or servers is also controlled. So if there is no need that this server and these four servers should talk to each other, you can control the communication and they won't talk to each other. And so the lateral movement within segment is also controlled. So this is the basic concept behind the micro segmentation. Mitigation, it enhances the security of applications and data by applying more specific access controls, prevents attackers from moving across the network by isolating individual workloads. As I described, by individual workloads, you may say that individual VMs or individual servers. So it is a granular control at individual server level, limits exposure to potential vulnerabilities by segmenting based on risk, sensitivity, or business need. Example, implementing micro-segmentation within a data center where each individual virtual machine or VM has its own security policies, even if they are on the same physical server or even if they are in the same virtual network or VLAN. So the next mitigation technique is using the access control or access control list. So access control refers to the methods and mechanism used to regulate who or what can view or use resources in a computing environment. And the access control is applied through access control list, which is a list of rules defining which user or system can access specific resources and what actions they are allowed to perform. For example, some user may be allowed to access some resources and some may be denied, and this is all done through an ACL or access control list. And these are usually applied through routers and firewalls. Example, a firewall ACL allows or denies traffic based on IP addresses or ports, and it protects resources by explicitly permitting or blocking access. So access control is also applied through permissions, and it is specific rights or privileges assigned to users or systems to perform certain actions on resources. For example, read, write, and execute. You may have read this file permission in Linux, where each file have these permission: read, write, and execute. Example, user has only read only permission to share to a shared folder. For example, a user may be given only read only. Another user may be given read as well as write or edit permission as well. And it is used to ensure appropriate level of access to maintain security and minimize risks. Another mitigation technique is application allow list, are also known as whitelisting or whitelist. So it is a security mechanism that permits only approved or whitelisted application to run on a system or network. Example include only productivity apps like Microsoft Office or Zoom are allowed on corporate devices, and it is used to reduce the risk of malware or unauthorized applications that are being executed. Application deny list, so you can control application either through whitelist or this one is known as blacklist. So a security mechanism that blocks specific application or blacklisted application from running on a system or network. Example include games or non-malicious applications are blacklisted on workstation, and use that it prevents the execution of potentially harmful or non-compliant application. So which one is more secure, whitelisting or blacklisting? So the whitelist is more secure because there are hundreds and thousands of applications. If you only allow, let's suppose, Office, Zoom, and blacklist all other applications, you are more secure. But if you want to block the malicious applications, you can do that, but again there are thousand upon thousand of application, and it will be very difficult for you to maintain this blacklist unless you have licensed appliances such as licensed antivirus or licensed firewall that that keep updates this blacklist through the vendor's cloud. So the next mitigation is isolation. So what is isolation? It is a security strategy that involves separating system, processes, or application to limit access and reduce the risk of spreading threats or unauthorized activities. Example include virtual machine isolation. So each virtual machine operates independently, preventing one compromised virtual machine from affecting others. And we can also isolate the network. So segmenting, as we already studied, segmenting networks to restrict access, such as separating a guest Wi-Fi network from the corporate network. Its use is that it protects critical resources by minimizing exposure to potential threats and ensures containment in case of breach or malware infection. So it is again related to our topic of segmentation. Sorry, let me get forward. So the next mitigation is patching. So it is the process of applying updates or fixes, that is patches, to software, operating systems, or firmware to resolve vulnerabilities, bugs, or performance issues. Example include installing monthly security updates on Windows to address new vulnerabilities and updating firmware on network devices to fix critical exploits. And its uses include that it prevents exploitation of known vulnerabilities and it ensures systems remain secure, stable, and compliant with security standards. The next mitigation technique is encryption. So definition is that it is a security technique that transforms data into a coded form that is ciphertext to prevent unauthorized access, ensuring confidentiality during storage or transmission. So encryption can be used for data at rest or when data is stored, or for data in transit or when data is transmitted. Example include at rest is encrypting files on a disk using AES, that is advanced encryption standard. For example, you can encrypt your hard drive using the Microsoft BitLocker on your Windows. So this is encryption of data at rest. And in transit, using the HTTPS to encrypt data transmitted between a browser and a web server. So whenever you, let's suppose, open the www.google.com, it is basically HTTPS. So when your browser connects with Google server, it is through HTTPS, and your connection in transit, or your data in transit, is encrypted and secure. Use protects sensitive information from being accessed by unauthorized parties and ensures data confidentiality even if intercepted or stolen. Next mitigation is continuous monitoring. So it is the continuous observation and analysis of systems, network, and activities to detect security incidents, performance issues, or unauthorized actions. Examples include network monitoring, which is using tools like Wireshark or Splunk to analyze traffic for suspicious behavior. And system monitoring include tracking CPU usage, disk activity, and logins for anomalies. Use includes it detects and responds to threats in real time and ensures compliance with security policies and helps maintain system performance. So in monitoring, we have specific tools and systems such as SIEM, which is Security Information and Event Management. So it is a solution that aggregates, analyzes, and correlates security events and logs from multiple sources to detect and respond to threats in real time. So the SIEM collects logs from multiple devices such as servers, firewall, IPS system, routers, switches, workstation, end user devices, etc., and then aggregates it and correlates it. And tools of some example of SIEM include popular example are Splunk, IBM QRadar, or ArcSight. So these are the most popular SIEM solutions. Functionality is that it alerts when suspicious login attempts occur across multiple servers. So this is just one example of its functionality. It has hundreds and thousands of functionalities and use cases. And its use is that it enhances threat detection and incident response and provides centralized visibility into security related data. And monitoring, again, in monitoring the other solution that is related to SIEM. So the SIEM is different between SIEM and SOAR is that SIEMs collects logs and you can just analyze it and see that what is happening. You can say that SIEM is passive while the SOAR is active. It also acts upon the suspicious activity such as blocking IP addresses or malicious devices. So the definition is that it is a platform that combines security orchestration, automation, and incident response to streamline and enhance security operations. Example include automating phishing emails analysis and blocking similar emails, and coordinating response across firewall, SIEMs, and endpoint protection tools. Its use is that it reduces response time to security incidents, enhances collaboration and efficiency in security operations, and frees up analysts to focus on high priority tasks by automating routine processes. So instead of doing the manually through analysts that they have to go through thousands lines of logs and see manually that what is happening for anomalies, you can automate this through SOAR, which automatically detects anomalies and automatically acts upon it. So the next mitigation technique is the least privilege, and it is a security principle that restricts users, applications, and systems to minimum level of access or permissions necessary to perform their duties or function. Example include a user with read-only access to a database instead of full administrative rights, and a backup software granted access only to specific directories it needs to back up. And it uses that it limits potential damage from accidental or malicious actions and reduces the attack surface by minimizing unnecessary access to sensitive resources. Another term or mitigation technique is configuration enforcement, and it is the practice of ensuring that systems and devices adhere to defined security and operational configuration, typically through automated tools or policies. So you have a baseline of security configurations that must be applied on all through all devices, and this is done usually through automated tool and policies. Example include using a configuration management tool such as Ansible and Chef to enforce standardized firewall rules across all servers, applying group policy objects, so this is specifically for Windows, in Windows to ensure users cannot disable antivirus software. Uses include that it maintains consistency across systems to reduce misconfiguration and ensures compliance with security standards and policies and minimizes the risk of vulnerabilities caused by incorrect or unauthorized settings. Decommissioning. So what is decommissioning? It is the process of safely retiring or removing outdated, unused, or obsolete hardware, software, or system from active service while ensuring that data and configurations are securely handled. Example include hardware decommissioning, which is physically removing old servers and securely wiping their storage drives. Software decommissioning include uninstalling unsupported software and securely archiving data before removing the application. Uses include reduces the attack surface by eliminating outdated or unsupported system and ensures that sensitive data is securely destroyed or transferred. It helps with compliance by properly handling retired systems and data. So now some of hardening techniques. Hardening is securing the system or devices through different security techniques, and the first one is encryption. So encryption protects data by converting it into secure format, ensuring confidentiality and integrity. So encryption basically, the basic purpose is confidentiality, but it can also ensure integrity. And its use case is that it secures sensitive data both at rest and in transit, making it unreadable to unauthorized parties. Another hardening technique is the endpoint protection. By deploying antivirus, anti-malware, and other security software on endpoints to detect and block threats. And use is that it protects devices like computers and mobile phones from malware, viruses, and unauthorized access. The next hardening technique is using host-based firewall. It is a firewall installed on an individual host or devices to monitor and control incoming and outgoing traffic. So when we use simply the term firewall, it is basically we are referring to the hardware firewall that is basically used to protect or monitor the whole network. Host-based firewall basically means individual firewall inside a host, such as your Windows Defender inside your Windows PC. And its use is that it provides an additional layer of security, preventing unauthorized access to the host while allowing legitimate communication. So you should use both the perimeter firewall or the network firewall and the host-based firewalls, which then acts as a layer defense. So this is, let's suppose, first layer, then the host-based firewall may be second layer, then maybe other layer in between. The next hardening technique is the host-based intrusion prevention system, which is a security system that monitors host activity to detect and prevent malicious actions or intrusions. Again, this is host-based intrusion prevention system. There are whole network-based intrusion prevention system, or you can say NIPS, which protects or monitors the host whole network. And its use is that it identifies and blocks suspicious activity or potential attacks based on predefined security rules. So we can call the anti-malware or antivirus as host-based IPS because it detects any malicious malware and promptly blocks it. Another hardening technique is disabling ports or protocols. So it is turning off unused or unnecessary ports and protocol to reduce exposure to potential attacks, or this term is also known as reducing the attack surface. We have already studied these terms. When you disable or turn off unnecessary ports and protocol, you are actually reducing the attack surface. And it is already mentioned here. It minimizes the attack surface by limiting access points for hackers to exploit. The next hardening technique is default password changes. So changing the default password on system, devices, and application to prevent unauthorized access. And use include that it reduces the risk of attackers gaining easy access to systems through commonly known or easily guessable default credentials. And the next and the last hardening technique is the removal of unnecessary software, and it is basically uninstalling unused software, services, or application to limit potential vulnerabilities. So it decreases the attack surface again and ensures that only essential software is running and reducing the chances of exploitation. So that's all for the domain 2. Thank you for watching and stay tuned and subscribe for the next video on domain 3.